So here's the thing with motivation. It's what gets us up and moving to do anything, like not just dance class, but there's a reason that spurs us to action, right? And some of that is internally based, like worry that I'm, not going to come back at such and such level. Some of that is externally based, especially if you're talking about being in a class setting, right? So that can come from your teacher, your classmates. You get motivation from them as well, right? Um, Not all motivation is created equal. And now is where I'm going to talk to everybody's fear about not coming back at your highest level and why I don't like that kind of motivation. The reason that I don't like it is because it's fear-based. It's a fear-based action, right? Like you're actually doing something out of fear rather than out of a want or a joy. And what strikes me the most about what all of you just said is not one of you mentioned that you love dancing, right? Which is crazy because I know that all of you do. Clearly you do. You would not be here right now if you didn't. But nobody mentioned that as a motivation for taking class and actually dancing. Right? Isn't that interesting? So we have our internal, right? Things that come from us, urge as motivation. And that can also be broken up into fear-based action, which it's negative and it claws at you, right? Like you worry about it, it kind of erodes your soul while you do it because you're just working out of fear. And then there's, growth and progress oriented motivations. Like I'm taking class because I just straight up love to dance, or I'm taking class because I want to improve on such and such, whatever it might be, right? Like if I'm taking tech class, I want to improve on my turns. Or if I'm taking stretch class, I want to get more flexible because I want to, not because if I don't, I'm never going to get any better and I'm going to die. Right? Like there's two very opposite feelings that are pushing you to do something. So that's the internal thing. I want to take a minute and talk about external motivation. So that's things that come outside of you. And I know you've heard your teachers say quite often that I can't make you do it, right? You guys have heard this all the time. Okay. I'm going to clarify that for you from a teacher perspective. And the fact is that is true to some extent. I can't make you do it over the long term. However, I can, if I'm willing to do it, if I'm willing to push my point, make you do it in the short term. But that motivation to do it, no matter what technique I use, will stop working the second you leave the room, right? It's a very short-term thing. I cannot actually make you do it over the long term. So when we say I can't make you do it, it's mostly true, but do bear in mind, if your teacher is willing to push it, they can make you do it in the short term, but only you can make you do it in the long term. Okay. When I started dancing, I started when I was 3, probably around the same age that most of you did. And I just loved being in class. I didn't even care about getting better. I just loved being there, right? Like you run around, you do your little marches, and that's about it. And it's fantastic. As I got older and very quickly, and you start competing and you start sort of understanding what's at stake a little bit more, that internal motivation gets quieted, right? And that instinctive like joy and love of movement gets pushed down, and the outside stuff starts to get louder. Like if I don't get better, I'm not going to be the best in my class. If I don't get better, I won't be in this class. If I don't get better, I'm not going to get this role. If I don't get better, I'm not going to win. If I don't get better, I won't be put in that group. If I make a mistake here, I'm going to be taken out of that group. And that outside stuff became a lot more important to me and became my main reason for dancing. And I would achieve it and I'd be happy for like 10 minutes. and then it would go away again, and that fear would start to come back up. And that fear was the reason that I went to class, and the fear was the reason that I pushed my body basically to the breaking point. That motivation got so loud that I literally burnt out my body completely and I had to stop dancing. I do mean stop. I had to stop completely for like 4 years because I just couldn't. And what I lost during that whole time, though, was I lost the simple fact that I loved to dance, which is so sad. It's so sad that I lost my main motivation for what I actually love to do, which was the fact that I just love to do it because my body liked to move. That was it. I found it again, and now I check myself, right, when my motivation gets too outside, but I know what I'm checking now. Does that make sense? As great as it is to want great things out of your dancing, and don't get me wrong, my expectations haven't ever lowered. I've never lowered my expectations, but I've gotten significantly happier about how I get there. And that has made the world of difference. I have achieved so much more and gotten so much better as a dancer and a teacher and a choreographer and just a straight up person when I stopped working from this fear based area. It ain't fun, man. It's just not fun. And I don't do good work over here. I do work. It gets done. But this is better. It feels better. The work is better. I have a lot more fun making it. And you're going to find the more enjoyable your work process is, the more motivated you're going to get to go do it. The last sort of thing that I need you to do, and this is perhaps for me, the biggest piece of motivation, is to find your why. Why do you do this? Period. Period. What do you get out of it? What makes you want to do this? Like, if you have your why, you can fall back on that in the worst of circumstances. And again, I won't lie. Sometimes dance training sucks. Sometimes it's straight up not fun. I agree. I completely agree. And as necessary as that sometimes is, if you have your why, it makes getting through that so much easier. So for me, I know my why is I do this because I have to, if that makes sense. This is who I am. It's not just what I do. This is who I am. It's part of my soul. Yeah. It's all about perspective when you're talking about motivation, how you're working on it. We always want to be in this growth, progress mindset rather than this fear-based. This will get it done. This will get it done better and more enjoyably and bring more motivation because the work is going well. Right? When things are going well, we want to keep going. When things are going badly, we would rather be anywhere else. So try to stay in the going well category and you'll find you come back much more often. You feel more energized to get your butt to class or rehearsal or whatever it is, or practice by yourself, whatever it is you're doing with, is that your motivation will ebb and flow. And that's completely normal. And that's not something to worry about. Like, you'll go through periods of really high motivation that, like, you just go all the time. You have so much you want to get done and it's great and you're loving it and you can't wait to get to class. Like, you will go through those periods where your motivation is like up here with no real effort from you. And then your motivation will dip and your motivation will be really low for a while. You'll maybe be really tired. That's normal. It's completely normal. And that low point is where discipline comes in. That's the discipline to keep going, to get your butt to class, even though I maybe don't want to. And that's when you start pulling out your tools that you now have.